Hello, hello and welcome. I'm so incredibly pleased to be here with you eventually to do our Feathers and Fur class, which is actually our fourth box in this fabulous collection, Academy of Colour. We're international on this session. I've just been reliably informed that we've got lots of you joining us from the US, from the UK and from Germany, which is brilliant. I'm so excited about that. We've got lots to go through, but I've got a little bit of an announcement. I'm using you as guinea pigs tonight. And I'm excited. I'm a little bit excited. You will see, if you're commenting on any of our social media channels through watching this, in fact, it's on YouTube. So if you're commenting on YouTube as you're watching me live tonight, there may be the opportunity for your avatar and for whatever comment you make to appear on the bottom of the screen, so that I can answer your questions live and so that everybody else can see the question that you're asking. So what I would say is, if you're not comfortable with your avatar, your username, your tag name, or your comment to be shared live with everybody else who's watching, you might want to think about commenting, because that could be picked at random and we might share it. But we're trying some new technology in terms of making it a little bit more interactive and allowing you to see those questions rather than just have us read them out to you. And I just put my foot down with a firm hand and said I want to try in the Academy of Colour class. And why not? So you are my guinea pigs tonight. Oh, we've got an example for you. Look, look at that. So that would be Wendy Myers, and it says, this is so exciting, I am beside myself. Wendy, so am I. So that is an example of what might happen during the course of the next couple of hours that we're together, with maybe some of your questions about the colouring techniques, or in fact, anything in general, or just support for the Purple Bus Tour. And if you're not sure about what the Purple Bus Tour is, then you'll find out during the course of the next 2 hours, I'm sure. And we've got the crew, the original crew with me. We've got Liam and Taylor and fabulous social superstar Susie, all helping get your comments to me via the power of a magic little thing in my ear and making sure that you get all of the fabulous views for the colouring I'm doing. So that's the setting the scene little bit that we've got for the next couple of hours. Let's dive straight in, because I know you're desperate to see all of the tutorials that we've got for Feathers and Fur. The first thing, I'm just going to move my cup of tea out of the way so I don't knock it flying. The first thing to do, of course, is just talk about what comes in the box. And this is a great box. You have really been looking forward to it. They're all great boxes, but I do think that Feathers and Fur is usually something that you're very, very excited about. So if I just take the sleeve off there and open up the box for you, what you can see is you've got your little card, which is your thank you. And of course, if this is the first time, that is always where you're going to get the instruction of where to find your education. A great top tip from a couple of people in our Facebook group was to keep it. And if you can just see that little sticky dot, there's a little sticky dot there which keeps it attached to your pens. Keep that, don't remove the sticky dot, and just do that on the top of your box so that you can see, keep and know where that is. And the reason for that is that you're not going to lose it. I know a few of you said, I've lost my card, how do I get to the education? If you've lost your card and you can't get to the education, then keep it there and you know where it's at. Okay, so you've got all of your markers there, which is superb. You've got your alcohol and you've got your aqua. So you've got all of your 6 new alcohol markers, which gives you 12 colours, and your 3 new aqua, which gives you your 6 colours. And then if we remove that layer, you've got your stamps. I'm going to show you these coloured in a second so you can see what they're like. So you've got your stamps for this collection that we're going to learn to colour in. You've got that lovely lion, you've got the owl, you've got your lovebirds, your squirrel, your fox and your flamingo. You've got your stamp panel as well, and then you've got both of your cards. You've got your watercolour and your alcohol card in there for you to get cracking straight away. So great value in there. You know that, you've already bought into the programme, you're absolutely loving it. That's what you're getting in your box. If I skip to show you what those images look like when they're coloured in, then I think you'll be really excited. So let's pop that back on there. I'm not going to show you what they're like in the binder. You've seen me do that in previous classes. So if you want to see how the binder's filled up, it's in a previous class. I don't want to waste any time with that. Stamps, pens, card. You know what they look like. Let's have a look at the images. So this is what you can expect to colour in, and this is what your images are going to look like. So you can see here we've got the watercolour versions coloured in of those stamps. So you've got your fox, lovebird, squirrel, flamingo, owl, and I like to call him Aslan. He isn't Aslan, but you know, all lions with great big manes will be forever my childhood dream of meeting Aslan one day when I go through the wardrobe into Narnia. And then, of course, you've got the alcohol ones as well that you can see there. And we're going to colour probably 4 of these in during the next 2 hours. But what you can expect from this class is what you've had with all other classes, in that I have got the step-by-steps for you. So I'm talking you through how to do it. We're telling you how to build that up. And then I've also got the thing that you're loving the most, and I always find that amazing, the scribbles. So the little scribbles of what I've done and what colours I've used, so that you can come back and use those time and again. And they will all get uploaded to the website for you. So it's a constant resource. And you'll see me, oh yeah, they go in the Facebook group too. And you will see me referring back to them constantly during this session, because none of us can remember exactly what we did. Well, I'm saying none of us. You might have a photographic memory, and if you can, I wish I was you. But I can't remember what I did yesterday, never mind what I did when I was preparing something 3 weeks ago. So I like to have a little reference point. And I believe we've got a little comment ready to share with you already. Ah, look at this. Connie, I need my little glasses for this. Connie Hull says, Leanne, you look beautiful tonight. Connie, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I mean, literally, I threw on a blouse and I whacked on some face. But thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Oh, do you know what? Yeah. So I did my feathers and fur. So this is my Danny Minogue blouse, people. Yeah, I bought it from the Danny Minogue petite range, and it's got hummingbirds on. It's my feathers and fur, so I thought it was appropriate for tonight. Thank you, Connie. I really, really appreciate that. It's very kind of you. I'm going to make sure that we get that snippet and send it to Mr. C. So he knows, and he can back you up on that when I get home tonight. Okay, so we've got our first, starting off with our lovebirds. So I'm going to get a piece of scrap card. Now this is what I started earlier, so we're going to put that aside and go right from the beginning again, because I think that's a good place. And you will need your palette, which came in your first box. So you'll need your blending palette, you'll need stamped with alcohol-proof ink, your lovebirds onto a piece of your alcohol marker card. And then you will need the following markers, and I'm referring to my written list, which you will be able to access on the Facebook group and on the website. And of course, if you want to pause right now, you can see what those markers are as part of your video. So the colours I'm going to get are AG1 and AG3. I'm going to get CG1 and CG3. CG1, I beg your pardon, CT1, CT4, OR1 and OR3, DR2 and DR4, IG2 and 5, and then I'm going to get GB5 and 8 and EB6. Where are you, EB6? There you are. And I'm going to get DG3 and DG2. And then we're going to have a game of bingo, putting all the pens back in the boxes in the right places, because they are from different boxes. You are using 3 markers from the box that you've received for your feathers and fur, and the other markers are from the other boxes. And, oh, we've got a top tip. Come on then. We're coming with a top tip. We've got a top tip for you with your markers. And this is from Jan Reid in our Facebook group. Jan says, since Leanne challenged us with using markers from all 3 boxes, I had this idea to easily identify each home box. I used a silver permanent marker to place 1 stripe along each original Academy of Colour box marker. Yep, the second box received 2 stripes and 3 received 3 stripes. This only took a few minutes while I was rewatching the class. This could also be accomplished with thin strips of tape. I imagine red liner tape could be used. Just don't remove the outer liner. No, don't. Or thin strips of duct tape. I can instantly identify each home box. Jan, you're a genius. And I need to do that to my markers, because I've just grabbed them all out of the different boxes, and then I'm going to get Liam with his fabulous chart to say, put that back in that box, Leanne, put that back in that box, Leanne. Because I don't know which box they're from once we've got them, unless referring back to charts all the time. So I think that's a fantastic tip from Jan, And I would suggest that you do that. And in fact, for the next class, we're probably going to do that with my markers in these boxes so we know what where the dickens they go. Anyhow, we've read out the colours to you, so we're going to start. Now, what you're going to start and do, and you do look at your instructions, you can see that this is all about palette blending. We've touched on palette blending in previous classes, but this colouring exercise really does rely on that. So we're going to use the first colour and then pick up the next colour. So for example, start the base using GB4, next pick up DG3 on AG3 and blend out. Pick up AG3 on AJ1 and blend out. Let me show you what is meant by that. We'll start with the bird. So DG4 is, let me find it, that's DG4 there. So DG4 on my bird, is that for the leaf? Nope, start with the bird using G, that's what I've done, DG4. So I'm going to have a little bit of this darker colour down at the bottom of my bird here, and that's going to be just a tiny, tiny amount to give the shade. And then I'm going to pick up DG3 on AG3. So the DG3 colour is here. Let's find that. It really is like a game of, I need to find DG3. Let me find it in my box. 1 second. Where are you? DG3, where are you? Oh, I think I might have wrote that down wrong. No, it's the DG4. I've wrote DG3 and I meant DG4. So we're going to put DG4 on the palette. So that's the dark colour that I've put down there. DG4 is going on there, and then with AG3, we'll amend that on the board for you before I put it in the group so it doesn't confuse you. Then with your AG3, which we've just referred to, you pick up your DG4 and then you blend that out a little bit. Okay. And that's your palette blending. So you're picking it up and blending it out. So you're getting a lovely blend between those two colours. Don't go too far because you've got a lot of colours to get through. So you're working in a small area at a time. That's my top tip to you. Don't go very far up the bird to start with. Just a small place and a little bit there up the sides. Then what my next thing says, you're going to push the colour you've just used down on your palette. So that's AG3. And then we're going to take AG1, which is the next lightest colour up, pick up the AG3 that we've just used, and then blend that. And what this does is take the previous colour you've used with the next lightest colour, and it does all of the magic blending for you on the palette, so you can build that up the bird as you go along, and you get this lovely seamless blend. Then what we're going to do is take CG1 and CT1. So CG1 here is an even lighter green. It's like a greeny yellow colour. And CT1 is my yellow. So I'm going to pick up that light green on the yellow and then blend. And in fact, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that to get that blend going first. See how I've got that? And then that runs out to that yellow colour and starts to blend it in. So you see, when you pick up the colour on your nib, I'm just going to show you that, it blends a new colour on the nib, and that blends a transition between the colour on the palette and the colour on the nib, and allows you to build that up as you work up the bird. So you can see how that's now moving to a yellow. And great question from Liam there. That won't ruin our tip, will it? And no, it won't, because you can see it's now completely gone from the tip of the marker. So you can just pick it up and do the little blend in the transition. You can go back over it if you want a little bit more of that green in there, and then just work it away and it moves to your yellow. And Taylor says that is a stunning seamless blend. Well, thank you, Taylor. I'm pleased it's translating onto the screen for everybody. We're then going to take CT4, which is one of our darker colours. There it is, our darker yellows. And I'm going to work back down now. So I want a darker yellow here, which is going to transition into an orange. So what I can do is put a little bit of that dark yellow down actually, so I can map where it's going to go. And then I'm going to transition the blend between the dark yellow and the light into the green. So that's when I take my CT1 and pick up my CT4 from the palette, and then bring that back down. And that'll bring me from the dark yellow, and I can scribble off onto a scrap piece if it's too much on there, into the light, which then transitions into that green. You can see how easy that was to do. Then what we're going to do is take our ORs. So we're taking our OR1 and OR3. So actually I think I'm going to start with the head and move down. I think it'll be easier. So I'm going to start with my DR4 actually. So I've gone dark green up into the yellow, and now I'm going to go dark red down into the orange. If I try to continue up and build that ombre, I'm just going to show you what I mean here. If I continue up to try and build this ombre up, I'll run out of space, whereas I know I need most of the head to be red for this lovebird. So as I've started dark and worked up to light, I'm now going to stop there and do dark and move down into light and join those blends in the middle. And that allows you to position exactly where you want those blends to meet and for it to be light in the center. So I'm going to put a tiny, like we did with the dark green at the bottom, I'm going to put a tiny little bit of the dark red around his head where I would like it there for shade. And then I'm going to start blending that out. So for the DR4 on his head, I'm going to pick that up with DR2. So DR4 on his head is the one I've just put on. DR2 is a little bit lighter, you can see. So I'll pick up the DR4 with the DR2, and then exactly as we did with the greens and the yellows, blend that down. And you can see I'm actually just using little dabbing motions there rather than circular colouring, and it's doing the blend for me. So I can pick up the dark, dab it in. As it comes off the nib, I get that lovely blend into the lighter tone of red. If you want a little bit of a darker shade in there, if it's not quite obvious enough, you can take your dark, which is your DR4, and while the ink's still wet, you see I was able to just dab a little bit more of that in and intensify that dark colour at the top of his head there. Then I'm going to take my oranges. So now I've got my OR3 and I've got my OR1. We've got a comment coming, so let's see what that is. It's apparently a good reminder for you all. And we've got Rita Francis. I just watch and chat for now. I will watch the videos again and practice later. I think that is practice then. So that is an excellent point from Rita. Thank you, Rita. I would recommend for all of you watching that you don't pressure yourselves into trying to follow along. Certainly, I think most of you, the majority of you, have said that you much prefer just to watch and listen and then go back and do it in your own time. And I think that's an excellent piece of advice for everybody. I think listen to what Rita says. She knows what she's talking about. So what I did there was I put my OR1 onto my palette, and with my CT4, which was this final yellow colour here, I've picked up on CT4 the OR1, and that lets me blend a transition from that orange and red down into this first dark yellow colour here. And then I'll just clean it, flip my marker to smooth that blend, get the lighter yellow, and just give that a little tease here. And then that smooths that blend out, and you've got the transition from the green all the way through up into the red on that little lovebird, which you can see there. And you would do exactly the same on this second bird. There's no difference. Now to do his little feet, I would take, oh, come back little bird, where are you? Here we go. I would take his little feet, I would do the darker near the body, so little dots there, and that's with my IG5. Yep, IG5. And then with my IG2, little drop on the bottom, that's his feet. And the same for the beak. So IG2, I'm going to have it lighter in the middle, and then I'm going to bring the IG5 just around the outside, and then to blend that, a little dot of that IG2 so it still stays light in the centre for his beak. To really give it a flash, what you can do is bring in your white marker from previous collections, from the main box, and just do a little flash on his beak there, which just makes that lighter. And then if you want to, you can do a little flash on his cheek. And that just gives a little highlight there, which is, you know, you can see, gives a little bit of dimension to the colour, and you can see the little line down the middle of the white beak there. You can do that with your white marker. If you've bled any alcohol ink into the white area of his eye, you can take your white acrylic marker and just pop that and hide it. So that makes his eye pop a little bit more. So don't worry about the fact that you did that. Just go with your white marker, your white acrylic marker, and fill that in, and that'll work for you. And then you'll do your palette blending on your leaves in exactly the same way as we did for previous collections. And you can also, if you want to, use your grey as an underlay for your leaf. So we'll just recap that. If you remember, in the first class we ever did, we talked about using grey as an underlay. So I want that centre of my leaf to be nice and dark, which I've done, and then I can take my DG over the top and I can do my lighter colour for the blend there, and it's really quick and easy, and that looks like a great leaf in no time at all. Okay, so that's how I've done the leaves when I've done them. If you want it lighter on the edge, take one of your light colours and you can knock that back or bleach it out if you like by using one of your light colours on the edges. I just do that with a yellow. See how that's just added a little bit of extra shine in there. So you can layer your colours up as well if you want to. So you would continue and do that, and you will end up with your fully coloured lovebirds. Knock that down. So you'll just follow exactly that, follow the instructions for the branch, and you'll have your lovely coloured lovebirds in there in alcohol marker. Makes it really, really easy for you to do. Now we've got another comment about cleaning your palette. So we've got Deb says, would those colours dry on the palettes, or would you be able to use them on the second bits? Oh, they will dry. They will be dry. Look, rubbing them, nothing on my finger, and nothing moving on the palette. However, if I come to do the little bird, let me show you that, because that's a really great question actually, Deb. Yes, they dry, and yes, when you're finished, you would need to clean this with I would use an acetone nail varnish remover, clean it off. That's, or I can't say the word. Or how do you say it? Isopropyl, you could use that. Be careful when you're using that because it is a pure alcohol. I just use a nail varnish remover at home, be honest with you. However, I can still use these colours. So if I start with my bird and do the DG4 down here on this little one, I don't need to put any more colour on my palette because the alcohol and the moisture in your marker pen reactivates picking up the colour off the palette. So example here, this is the DG4 colour that I've just coloured on there. Here is my AG3, which is what I use for the bottom of the bird. Now I'll just go and pick that up, and you see by manipulating it, I might need to press a little harder, but I've been able to pick that all up on there now, and I can do that blend. So it reactivates the wet alcohol in your marker, reactivates what's on your palette, and allows you to go ahead and do it. Just always give a little scribble to make sure your nib's nice and clean. Oh, Deb says thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. I think that's what these live sessions are about. It's about, you know, you having a question and then being able to ask it. Because if you're thinking it, you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody else is thinking it as well. And so that's a question that needs answering. And you can see we're able to blend that, and I haven't had to put any more colours on my palette. I'm able to pick them up, so you're not wasting the colours. You could do a few of these little birds in one go until all of the colour is gone. Just remember, do your little scribbles down there. You can see I had a little bit of green left on my, I'll just push that up so you can see. When I've cleaned it, I had a little bit of green left on my nib, and just by scribbling it, it's now back to the true yellow colour. So you can pick up the colours and reactivate them on your palette till you're ready and done. Okay, so I hope that's answered that for you. Now, when you put that together into a card with some pretty papers and a couple of lovely sentiments, a little bit of stenciling in the background there, you can see for some texture, you get a really beautiful example, and that's your lovebirds using palette blending with alcohol marker. Okay, so that's the first one. Tick. done. Now we're going to have a look at how to do those exact birds, but in watercolour. And the reason we're doing that is, I think in the last class, maybe the last 2 classes, can't quite remember, it all becomes one to me. We did the alcohol and then we did the exact same one in watercolour so that you could see the difference between the two. And we got lots of feedback from you saying that you absolutely loved it when we did that. So I thought, well, let's continue in that vein then. So we will have exactly the same for you. You'll have your board, you'll have your order to colour things in, and you'll have the colours that I've used on my little hand notes, and all of these will be uploaded to the website and the Facebook group for you. And of course, I will reference the colours as much as possible as we go through it. And we'll talk about how you do it as we go through. So let's start with the bird, should we? And I'll get my colours out. So I'm going to need moss. Let's put these alcohol markers here. They're going to have to go back in their boxes at some point in the future, my word. Okay. Right, so the first one we're going with moss green. In the main box, there it is. Thank you, Liam. Liam definitely has to come on the purple bus too, because how am I ever going to find a pen if Liam's not there just shouting it in my ear for me? I really need him at home. Maybe I should just put him on voice, you know, on a speaker call. I'm like, Liam, which marker is that in when I'm at home? And you can answer the questions for me. Right, so I've got moss, and then I've got leaf green, which I think might be on the other side. That's bud green. Leaf green. Oh, that's in Feathers and Fur. That's in your new box, leaf green. I've got meadow, which is in feather. Oh, that's on the other side of that one then. That's Feathers and Fur. Excellent. Meadow. I have got bud green on the other one that I've got there. Sunflower. Got that. That was in the main box. And orange, which is on the other opposite side. Crimson in the main box. Slate, I think, was in the main box. Black's in the main box on the opposite side. Azure blue was in the main box. Flora and fauna. Let's reach over here. Azure blue and chestnut, Feathers and Fur. Oh, that's your new one in your new box, chestnut. And fawn, new box. Yep, opposite side of that marker. And chocolate, which I think was in the main box. Yes, chocolate. There we go. So they're all the colours out, ready to go. And we're going to start colouring. We're going to start doing the bird first. So I've got my kitchen towel always when we're colouring in with an aqua. I've got my detail paintbrush from the main box, and I've got my pot of water, nothing else but clear water. And then I'll just follow my instructions to myself. Start the base with moss, pick up bud green and blend colours together, then add meadow. Okay, we can do that. So we're going to start the base with moss. Then we're going to pick up bud green on the opposite side, and then we're going to blend colours together and add some meadow, which is that one. So dark, medium, light is what we're doing for those 3 colours. And I do like to always pick up my colour from a blending palette. I just find it so much easier. And this blending palette in this collection, if I just turn this over so you can see it, see where it's at, there it is fantastic in terms of taking the colour but not having the colour sit away from you, so you can see how much colour you've laid down and it's easy to pick it up. It's fantastic for that, so do use your palette if you've got in the main box. So that's my moss going down there. Then I've got my bud green going down, and then the next colour I'm using was the meadow, so I'm going to put my meadow underneath. They're the 3 colours in the order I need to use them, which is the other reason I love the palette. I don't need to remember the name of the colour or anything else. I've just laid them down in order of my palette. I use this one, then this one, and that means I know what I'm doing from there. What I do like to do, however, guys, with the first little bit is just a tiny, tiny bit of the dark colour right at the bottom to start me off. Same as with the alcohol marker. And that gives you that intensity as you then start to blend up the colours. So you've just got that really dark layer. Because remember when we were talking in one of the first classes, you can't get 3D dimension and you can't get light and shade unless you've got some very dark areas. So it's always good to put the dark in. Wet your brush. Take off the majority of the water so that your brush is damp, not soaking. And then all we're going to do is pick up a little bit of that first dark colour, tiny bit on the tip of my paintbrush, and we're going to paint that in. So we're going to start to move the colour around. There we go. And do you know what? I love watercolouring. And what I'm loving from seeing in the Facebook group is so many of you saying, I was terrified of watercolouring and now I love it more than any other type. That makes my heart so happy. I can't even begin to tell you, because watercolouring is so painterly, but actually if you're new to colouring, it's the easiest place to start. For all you think it's the most scary, it truly is the easiest place to start. And you'll get such fabulous, fabulous results. So you can see what I wanted to do here was intensify the darks. I put a little bit of that middle colour in, didn't feel it was dark enough coming up there. And this is the great thing with watercolour. You can go straight in and layer and mix new colours so much easier than you can with an alcohol marker. And then I'll take that light colour and we'll mix that in here. And all of the time, what you'll also notice is I'm cleaning my brush and drying it. And the reason for that is, if you never clean your brush and you keep going into all of the other colours, you just mix a brand new colour of a colour in the middle, and that's when your watercolouring looks flat. And you get like a muddy colour. So you need to just keep cleaning the colour off and keeping your brush moist with this piece of kitchen towel. And if you do that, you won't go far wrong. Now I'm moving into the lighter colour. So I'm going to create this transition between the lighter colour and that mid colour that I've got in there. So I touch the end, drag that up with that light colour. Then I clean my brush. I need a little bit more of that in there. I think it was Meadow, wasn't it? Haven't put quite enough on. So a little bit more Meadow. Don't trap your tissue in the lid of your pen, which I've just done. Pick that up there, and then I can just bring that Meadow a little bit further up. And I'm getting that lovely transition between. Now, heat gun, if you've got one, you can dry that and then go back over with some darker colour over here to intensify this. I'm going to let that dry naturally, and then we're going to find a heat gun, and I'm going to do that for you. And the next colours that we need to use are going to be our sunflower to blend it into Meadow. So I'm taking my sunflower marker, that's coming underneath because that's the next one in the order. And I'm going to take a damp brush again, take a little bit of the sunflower and start to blend that into the Meadow. So you see, for the first blend, I go over where the join between the two colours are, and just manipulate that. So I've got that transition. And then if I need to, I can just take a little bit more of that and move it a little bit further up. So that's where I've gone with that. Okay, so I've got the yellow. Now we're going to start transitioning into the orange, the dark and the red. So the next colours I need to take is orange. And I've got that here. Where is my orange? Here it is. So that's the next one on my palette, and that's going to go there. And then after orange, I will be doing the crimson, which is the red colour there. And then I'm going to need a little bit of a darker colour than crimson. So I can have a little bit of my black here to mix a new colour in a second. Okay, so what we're going to do now is start blending in the orange as we move up. Now it's a little bit different doing the watercolouring because I am looking where I've got the colour for my birds and matching that as I go up rather than starting from the top down. A little bit different for watercolour because I need to have the blend of the water for each one to not get a harsh line or a watermark as we go up there. So next one is orange, and then blend those together. Clean my brush and then manipulate the line between where the orange and the yellow was, and you get that blend between the two. You can see there. And then what I can do is get some more of my orange and now intensify that up here by picking it up off my palette. Okay, there we go. A little bit more in here, just to come under his chin. And the colours are really, really intense in these markers, so you can decide how much you want to use. I mean, I'll show you in a second. I'm colouring this a little bit lighter, and than the one that I've got as an example, and that's your choice. You can use them as light colours by using more water, or use them as really dark colours. Really dark colours. And sorry, beg your pardon, I was reading the next question that's coming up and I got myself distracted, and so I was repeating my words. So just to let you know that there's a great question coming up which I'm going to answer, but to the point I was making, if you use water you get a lighter colour, and if you don't use as much water and you just keep layering up your colour on top to dry it, you'll get a dark colour. Does that make sense, everybody? Hopefully it will when I show you. So I'm just going to grab my heat gun and show you what I mean by that. But then I'm going to answer this next question that's coming up too. Oh, it's not on. Oh dear. Well, never mind. While we're waiting. Okay. So while we're waiting to get the heat gun working, Deb wants to know how wet to get the brush. You can't quite get that right. I think I might be working now. Yes, I am. So Deb, I would say, when you put your brush in your, I'm going to do it on my hand so you can see the drops. When you put your brush in your water pot, if you've got anything that's doing that, any drops coming off, far too wet. So what you should be doing, and that's just going to pool everything, your colour's going to move everywhere. So that's why I have the kitchen towel. So when I've cleaned my brush and I've put it in my pot, I then touch it, don't dry it, touch it and let that wick away. Now when I do this, there's no water coming off on my hand, but the brush is wet. So maybe you can see that moisture there on my hand there, where I've just painted that on, you can see that shining. So there should be moisture, but depending on the technique you're doing, you don't want this amount of wet, where you get big drops coming off the brush. And that's why you put it in the water and touch it to the towel. By touching it to the towel, it wicks away the excess and gives you enough control to paint with. Right, so back to where we were, guys. To be able to layer up more colour and put more intense green or yellow in here, you would dry it. Because if you just keep putting more water, more water, more water, all of the colours will just mix together and you'll not get that definition between the rings. So get your heat gun out. If you haven't got a heat gun, you can just leave it to dry naturally, but do leave it till it's really touch dry before you go to do the next thing that I'm about to show you. So with the dark green colour that we were using earlier, which I believe was moss up here, if I want some more intense green colour down here now, because I've dried it, I can go and layer some more of that dark green in here and intensify the colour. So that's how you get a more intense watercolour look between the light colour that I had and the dark colour here. So I would dry a layer and then go over with more colour. And that gives you that lovely effect that you can build up. So you're essentially repeating the process over the top of itself, if that makes sense. And that's how you can intensify the colour as you go along. If I wanted to do the same with the yellow, pop that on there, and the meadow, which was there, and that one, which was there. I think I'll show you that because I think it'll be a good thing to see. This colour next, and that's going to intensify that brightness here. Clean my brush, remember, get that colour off, go and pick up the next one, which is the interim, blend that in there, and you can see the difference now between the intensity of the colour on that bird. And then I can pick up a little bit of my yellow, put that in the centre. I've got that transition into that orange now, and that bird is much more intense in colour than it was before. So that's how you can do that. I'm going to continue now doing my orange. So the orange is coming up here, and then I'm going to start moving into the red, but I do need a little bit more orange. We've got a great question, by the way, coming up from, it's YouTube, I presume. And it's from SB on YouTube, and they want to know, why do some of the pens have both the name and number but others have only the name? Much easier to have both. Okay, SB, let me explain to you. I'm just going to pause there in that colouring, and I'm going to get my alcohol marker, and I'm going to get a similar colour of the duo marker, the water marker. So alcohol pens have both a name and a number. to help us put the correct combinations together. In this DR family, in the Spectrum Noir family, there could be 8 or 9 of those colours. So it helps you just pick your DR1 to your DR8 or 9, 2 or 3 colours with a gap. You can see there's a gap between 2 and 4 there. So number 3 has been left out, so you get that lovely blend. And in our wider Spectrum Noir range, in some of the markers, they'll be called Ruby, and in some of the markers, it'll be called DR4. So that's there for you to easily identify where that colour is. Aqua markers don't need a family of colours with transitions all the way through because you use water to blend it. So one colour of red, crimson, can be a very light red up to a very dark red, to the point I've just been showing you here where you've got a very dark green or a light green by layering up more of the colour and drying in between. So because you don't need variations in the same colour as you do in an alcohol marker, we've just got one colour, and that's crimson. And that's, so you know, that's your aqua, this is your alcohol. Hope that answers it for you. Okay. And actually, to just make that a little bit more clear, because I don't know if I was clear enough, I do like to answer your questions in as much detail as I can. I just want to show you on this piece of watercolour card here, and I'm going to show you with the crimson to give you an example of what I mean. I've got crimson here, that's one colour of marker. By adding water, you would emulsify that and it will change into another colour. If I do it on my palette, I can pick up the colour and then change from dark all the way to light. By doing the thing that I've just been explaining to you, I can intensify that colour at the top when it dries and have more colour up there. So you can see that. And then I've got there all the way down to the different colour, all the way at the bottom. By just having more water and dragging that down, I've got everything from a really rich terracotta down to a very, very pale, almost skin tone pink. And the more I blend that out and the more water I add and the further down the page I go, look, the lighter it's gone. If that was an alcohol marker, and if I take an alcohol marker beside it now, which is not ideal, don't do this at home because this is a watercolour card, that's the colour I've got, and it will not move with water. They don't. So to get this effect of in the same hue, in the same colour, to get a different shade, which is from dark to light, you would need to do this approximately 10 alcohol markers, which is why on the alcohol marker you've got the DR2 to the DR4. So imagine this is DR4, this is DR2, and that's the colour transition in between. Alcohol only moves with alcohol, you can't move it with water. That's why you've got the number on there as well to help you with that. With an aqua, you can do all of that with one colour and every shade in between by diluting it with your water. And that's why you only need the one colour in a family and why it's only got a name and not a number. Okay, hope that makes more sense. And another demonstration of why doing these live and being able to show your questions is absolutely fabulous, and I love it. Right, so back to my little birds. Oh, Taylor says it's like insider info straight from the expert. I don't think I'm an expert. I love to colour, but I'm on the same journey as everybody else. I started from a place of absolutely no knowledge, and it's just practice and experience that kind of brings you on that journey, doesn't it? And I just like to share my experiences with you. And if I can give you some little hints and tips and some examples of what's going to make it easier and give you a great result at home, I am happy, and I count that as a win. So I've put the dark red at the top, and then I'm blending that down now to meet this orange. So you can see I'm just being careful around the eye area, bringing that red down into the orange, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange and blend back up into the red. So you see I came down and then up, and that builds that join for me. And what I can do then with my heat gun is dry it. And then when I've done that, again with a damp brush, I can pick up a little bit more of that crimson. And I can intensify that. I can also pick up a little bit more of that orange and intensify that. And then mix the two together and make the join. Now, if I want the red at the top of his head to be even darker than that, I can mix myself a new colour. And that's where I put the little bit of black on there. And that's going to go alongside my crimson. So what I'm going to do now is take a tiny bit of this. Brush was too wet. That's where you have to do as you're told. To follow your own good advice. Look what's happening when my brush is too wet. An example. So take the moisture off. I'm going to do that again up here. Crimson. Take a little bit of the black, tiny little bit, mix it into the crimson colour. I might need a little bit more, and always start less is more with the black and add more as you go. See how there, that's a lot. It was probably too much, so clean the brush, pick up some of the crimson, bring it in there. See how I'm getting that lovely dark colour now there, which is a different shade of the crimson. When I'm happy with that, clean my brush again, then take that colour that I've just mixed and add that in to the head of the bird. At that point, clean your brush again, pick up some true crimson and do the blend back down into the bird. And that's intensified the shade at the top of his head in the same colour. So that's how you would do that in the watercolour for him. Then what you're going to do is the leaves in the watercolour them in the same way, using the same colours. Colours are all included for you. Branches the same. I'm conscious I want to move on to another demonstration. So the technique that I've just shown you is exactly the same for the leaf and the branch. What I want to do is show you the background. So to do the background, we're going to do that with the azure blue. So I'll put that azure blue on there. Dry the bird fully. So this needs to be fully dry before you do the next bit. Oh yeah, the watercolour card does have that texture there. It makes it look like it's got feathers. It really does, Liam. You can use your white acrylic marker if you need to intensify the eye area. You see, I've made sure that's very dry when I've done that. There's no moisture left in it. Then I'm going to take my water, voila, and I'm going to trace around what I've just coloured, just with water. And there's a reason for this. So I'm just going around the edge of what I've just coloured, not into the image, just around. I'll go around the leaf as well, and then I can bring that out further. Okay, so this is just with water. Join it up. Do it in small parts. You don't need, well, you could do the whole thing if you wanted. I would probably do the top of the image and then the bottom, but I'll just do a bit so you can see. Okay, so I've gone all the way around there. And then I've brought that out in that wet area there. Okay, so the next thing you do with your azure, with your blue, whatever colour you want in your background, actually, it doesn't just have to be the azure, is do it exactly the same. Damp your brush, pick it up, and then when you paint it in here for your background, it will move away from the bird so that you don't contaminate those colours. The water has it moving, so you can get this lovely background. You don't contaminate because it's only going to go, the colour's only going to go where the water is, and you've traced around, so you see none of that blue has bled in to my bird there. That's because I dried it fully and then only put the wet around it. Clean your brush and then just do this, which drags it out to create your lovely background. And it will continue to move away from the lovely coloured piece that you've got. You can see that even in that leaf, into that tiny little area I'm going to do there. Because I've got the water in, it moves away from the area you want to keep white to colour in a different way. And that's how you splodge in your background. When you're happy with it, dry it. Heat gun is the best friend with watercolouring, I have to say, it really is. Dry it, and then when you've gone all the way around, that's what you've got. And that's how you stop the blue contaminating in and making brown with all the other colours. If the bird was still wet, when you put the blue on there, water attracts water. So they would all try and mix together and make one colour. So it's very important that you dry it thoroughly and then go in to do the background around the piece. And when you've done all of that and you're ready and it's all watercoloured in, you can use one of the background techniques we did in the original aqua class with some colours and then just mount it up and you've got a really beautiful creation at the end. Okay, so that's how you do the watercolour techniques for the birds. How are we enjoying it so far? And also let me know, are you happy that I'm doing a little bit and showing you the technique, or would you prefer to see the whole thing coloured in? Would you prefer to see less different images coloured and more from beginning to end, or are you happy seeing partial coloured where you can continue and do that yourself and get more techniques? I'm interested because it's very important for me that we get these education classes to be exactly what you want. We've got a comment from Wendy. Oh, it's on the screen. I'm forgetting. You're my guinea pigs and I forgot that we're doing it on the screen already. I'll get used to it. Wendy Myers says, you are a master colourist. Oh, Wendy, that is so kind. Thank you so much. Really, I'm not. I'm just a crafter who's been doing it for a long time. I am exactly like you with a few years more under my belt. And I do love to share what I've learned along the way. And that's all I'm doing. Giving you the tips and techniques that I've learned from the mistakes that I've made on my journey and then passing them on and hoping you get a great experience as part of it. It's very kind, Wendy. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we're going to move on to in the words of my granddaughter, the Mingo, which is a flamingo. So I'm going to grab that. I love the flamingo. There is, for those of us in the UK with either children or grandchildren, you will know the programme Dougie. If you're in the US and you have no clue what I'm talking about, see if you can get a YouTube of Dougie. It's for preschool, like 2-year-old, from birth to going to school. He's great, very educational. There is a flamingo in Dougie. She's my spirit animal. She has roller skates, she does dancing. She's absolutely amazing. So if you do nothing else after this education session, go and find that and it'll lift your spirits. Probably shouldn't have shared that, but there we go. It's out of my mouth. It's in the live session and it's there forever. So there we go. We know that the flamingo in Dougie is my spirit animal. Let's start by grabbing a piece of spare card from over here. Whenever I see it, whenever I see flamingo, I always think of her. Anyway. Okay, so we're getting an overwhelming favourite comment, which is saying you're preferring the techniques over a full finished project because you can go and then practice that technique. So more techniques on more images and less of the full things because I'm sharing you all the step-by-steps and the finished anyway. So thank you very much. Julie Lowe says, I think more techniques is great. The references you post allow me to see the complete picture. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. That's my intention. That's what I want for you. But sometimes, you know, my intention might not be what you actually need from me. So it's great to know that that's working. Okay, so we're going to do the flamingo. So she's going to end up looking like this. I'm going to find my pens, and my pen colours are, I think they're in the new box, PP1 and PP3. I'm just going to put them all there for now. I'm going to have to sort them out later. PP1 and PP3, yes, is there. And PP4 and PP6. And IG2, which might have been main box. And I think was over here. I've just used it. Thank you, Liam. Gosh, she's on the ball. IG2, so I've got that there. Great. So they're all of the colours I'm going to use. And then we've got our step-by-steps, which of course will be uploaded for you again to use. And I think you can see very clearly there how that's going. So we've put a base colour on, we've made a map, then we filled in, we'll get a beautiful flamingo at the end. So and Liam keeps saying it to me and he's absolutely right. It's all about trusting the process because that looks mad. And if you were doing that yourself, you're like, that is never going to look like a good coloured in image, but this is what it's going to end up like. Trust the process. So the first thing you're going to do is take your lightest colour, which is PP1. So we're going to take our PP1, and this is with alcohol colour, everybody, and we've stamped this on the alcohol marker card with an alcohol-proof ink pad. And we're going to colour in the entire base of this flamingo, or if you're Ada, Mingo. She's 2. She loves Mingo. she really does. Oh my word. There's so many different little cute words she uses for stuff. We're going to colour the whole base in with this PP1. I think it is PP1. Yeah, PP1. So just a nice base colour all over. There we go. Right, so that's in place, and actually I'm going to have a little bit on the legs. So the foot would be pink, and then I'd have some grey. Foot would be pink, going to some grey. Pink here, a little bit of pink here. Pink at either side of the, I'm going to call it a knuckle, but it's not. The bend in the leg. Okay, so full colour pale pink everywhere. Then you're going to take your darkest colour, and you're going to add your deepest shade. Now remember when we were talking about layering, things looking on top of each other or underneath each other in the first class, that's what we're going to keep in mind when we do the next bit. So where it will be darker, where it will be lighter. So we're going to add some dark colour around, is it a him or a her? We'll call it there, around their head, because we don't know. And then we're going to add that down there. So I'm going to bring the dark colour around the side of the neck and around here. Stop there. So I've got a light area and a dark area. That's my first piece of the map. Under here, the under body bit is going to be darker because it's got all of the wing activity on top. And then what we're going to do is start putting in colour where the feathers would overlap each other. So, example. Here are the feathers that are on top. Here are the feathers that are underneath. So to explain that for you, the feathers that are on top are going to be darker here, the top of the body. Here, and then this one. And then because these feathers now are underneath and this feather's lying across the top, we need to go and put the dark in here so that there's a contrast. So you can see the feather lying over the top. And that's so you can see this feather is now lying over the top of these two bottom feathers and creating that shadow. And this is where putting your map in is really important. So we can see here the tip of this light feather needs to lie over the top of that bottom feather and it would cast a shadow. So we're putting our map in there. The same goes here, top feather lying over the top of these, so creates a shadow, so getting the map in there. Top of this feather darker, so you've got light against dark. This is how you're going to create all of your dimension. This feather up here is going to be dark on the top because it's got lighter feathers underneath. Similarly here, we're going to have a dark piece over a light piece, a dark piece in here, and then a darker piece on top. So putting our maps in place for where they are. This little bit of wing is going to stand out on the body, so it's going to have a darker piece. And don't worry if it's not exact. You know, if I've blended a little bit of colour over there, it doesn't matter, it's all going to get blended in a second. For this feather to look like it's on top of the body, I need some dark shading on the body here. And I'm going to bring that round underneath so it looks like it's in an area. So there's where I'm doing my map of colours, and I'm pretty pleased with that. So that's my map in place, exactly as we've done here. Okay. Then what we do is start to blend, and we can palette blend again. So that was with my PP6. So PP6 goes on my palette as it did before. And then I'm going to take the PP4, which is on the opposite side of the marker, PP4. And I'm going to start to blend that out. So I'll pick a little bit of that PP6 up on my PP4 and then blend it out into the PP1. Not all the way, because you want to keep the PP1, and I'll show you why in a second. So yes, you definitely preserve your highlight. So you can see I've done that little bit of blend there. Then I've got that PP4 here on my palette, and I take my PP1, which we first put on as the base colour everywhere. And blend that in, and that's how you get that transition on the flamingo. Okay, are we feeling comfortable with that? Okay, brilliant. And then you just you just continue to do that all over the bird now that you've got your map in place. So I've got PP6 and PP4. This is my PP4. And I'm going to go and continue to do that to bring that colour out a little bit. So pick up the PP6 on the PP4, drag that colour out a little bit. You're keeping your preserved highlights in all those mapped areas. You're just bringing the shade out. Wow, an hour's gone already. Wow, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? There we go. Bring that out there. So you can see I'm just picking up with the lighter colour, the darker colour, and extending the blend all the way in all of the dark areas where I've mapped it out. I'm gone silent. Let me see. Okay, so we've gone there. So it's exactly the same as you've seen happen lots of times before. You've just extended the blend. If you need a little bit more of your dark pink, you can scribble it on there. There we go. And trust the process. It's not looking like anything you'd be proud of right now, but it will be when you're finished. Then what we're going to do is take our PP4, I beg your pardon, put that on there, and take our PP3 marker, pick up that and extend the blend a little bit further. Oh, our viewers have named the flamingo. Can't wait to hear. Okay, it's coming on screen. Deborah Griffiths, his name is Placido Flamingo. I named him when I got the box. That's good for me, Deborah. Henceforth, he is known as Placido Flamingo. Thank you very much, Deborah. I really appreciate it. Because it was causing us some anxiety, not knowing what we were referring to him as. Oh, so Placido Domingo is actually a opera singer. So apparently a very famous one. He's actually called Flamingo. Oh, Placido Domingo. Right. Okay, I'm with you. I am with you. Okay, Placido Flamingo. That is great. I was wondering if there was somebody actually out there in the world called Flamingo. I was going to feel sorry for them. So that's good to know, isn't it? Okay, so you can see I'm just picking up the palette blending and extending those blends all the way down, keeping the dark areas where they need to be in the dark areas, and then changing from PP4 to PP6 to PP4, and then PP3, and the final colour will be PP1 right on the tips. And that's how we build that lovely colour up. I think I just need a little bit more. No, I think I'm not. I'm going to keep going as I am. And then I'll change my mind later if I feel I need to. So now I'm going to pick up my PP3 on the PP1 and continue to extend that out. And you see what that starts to do now is extend that smooth blend into the body of the wings. Pick that up. You've got the feathers all looking like they're laying on top of each other. There we go. And then if you can spot any areas where you feel you need a little bit darker, you can do that. So I think I need a tiny bit in here. So I'm going to do PP4, PP6, PP4, and pick it up on PP3. And then just bring a tiny bit of deeper colour in there. brings my PP3 out, and then to my PP1 on the other side, smooths that blend, and there we go. So that's how quick and easy that is to do. Then you would take your grey, ice grey, and pick it up on the pink. I'm going to use my PP3 for his legs. So I'm going to mix a new colour with the grey and the PP3, and then I'm going to extend that palette blend on his leg just to get that more realistic leg colour with an undertone of the pink of the flamingo in there. There we go, and then clean that off and finish the blend. So I'm going to go with the lightest, PP1, just to join into my preserved highlight areas. And that'll be great for the legs. There we go. And then we're good to go. You can put some darker bits in if you like, so on his knuckles, and that'll give you that darker shade. Pop that in. And actually, I would be tempted to take a bit of coral and really pop that. Yeah, that's what I would like to do. And I'm going to have a little bit of that in his foot, and there, and then a little bit of that underneath. Right, so this coral colour would actually give some great pops in this if you wanted to. And I'm just going to show you, so put a little bit more grey in there for his leg. I'm going to show you the original, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and you can try either at home. A little bit more of grey in there in his legs, so then I'm going to blend that out with the pink. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm happy with those legs. Now then, if I wanted to add a little bit more depth of colour into some of these wings, I just want to show you that the flamingo is coming along. So you can see once that's dried, it'll go much smoother in its blend, as you've got here. That's what we've done. I'm going to build on that a little bit more in this demo, just change it up a little bit by taking my CR8 Vermilion, and what you could do is put little pops of that into the very corners of the wings, and what that will do is really intensify that, so you get a much darker, it stands out so much more, and it's the tiniest amount I'm adding, so you can see I'm just tipping it in those darker areas, but it makes the light pop immediately. And that's what I mean about having that, not being afraid to have the dark in there. So make your map and then go back and add some little bits of darker area in, and it's much easier to go back at the end and add that little bit of darker in than it is to have too much at the beginning. And you can really make your colouring pop by doing that, and I think you can see by adding those little just touches of that vermilion, that CR8 as it is from the original box in there, that those feathers become so much more dimensional immediately. Okay, Deborah absolutely loves the flamingo. I'm so happy you do, Deborah, so do I. I think Placido, is amazing. All right, so there's the flamingo in alcohol colour for you. You're going to follow those along. Additional step I used there, a little bit of the CR8 from the original box to just make him pop a little bit more. And then when you put that together into a project, voila. And you can do a little bit of stenciling in the background. I do like to do that with my stencils, just subtle colouring in with a little bit of ink to match in. Stand tall, great sentiment for that. Okay, so that's what you're going to be able to do with the alcohol colouring. We're going to do him in watercolour now. That's the word. Thank you very much. Now, what I've done for the watercolour, I'm getting a bit of spare card so I can have that underneath. And I'm going to need my palette. I think I've ruined both of my, well, I haven't ruined them, I just haven't got any nail varnish to clean them. I'll use that side of the palette, be fine. Talking to myself now, getting all of the right answers when I talk to myself. I have already, hoping you can see it, stamped and heat embossed him in white. Can you see that there? See that there? Yep, okay. So I've heat embossed and stamped him in white, and we're going to do a similar technique to that we did in one of the previous watercolour classes, and that is going to be the wet into wet technique. So the colours I need are, let me check my notes, I need fuchsia, tulip, that's from the new box, fuchsia and tulip, and magenta, yeah, could be anywhere now, there it is, magenta, and aquamarine, got it, aquamarine, and I also need peacock blue, which is there. Okay, we've got all of those. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Wendy says, I want you to know, oh, Wendy Maya says, I want you to know this is the best class yet, Leanne. Wendy, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I do like to listen to your feedback as we go along, and I do watch and read all of your comments in that Facebook group. I comment when I can. And I like to try and build that in. So Wendy, I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. You're enjoying it. I'm really... Oh, hang on. Patricia Payne says, thanks, Leanne, for explaining as you go. This is great. Do you know what? That's what these classes are all about, Patricia. It's about giving you the skills, the technique and the confidence to go forward and have a great experience with your boxes and to feel like you've been on a journey with us and maybe not even improve your colouring. You could be an amazing colourist, but maybe give you some confidence to try some different things. I think that's the pure joy of Academy of Colour. I just think it's probably one of the best things we've ever done at Crafters Companion, actually, doing this session where we've got all of this time together without all of the interruptions from sales. And I personally think it's something we should do a lot more of. If you agree, get your comments in and we'll flood the inbox and let them know that's what you want to see. Along with the purple bus messages, I've got my, oh, there it is, I've got it. Thank you. Taylor has just cleaned my palette for me. I'm incredibly grateful to her. Okay, so we've got our white heat embossed Mingo and some water. I'm going to get some clean water actually, guys, which I've got down here because I think it's important. Okay, clean water and some more kitchen towel. So wet into wet technique, if you remember, you need to paint your image with water to prime it, which we're going to do. Within the area that you're going to paint. So we're just putting some water in there to prime it. And that's just in the areas that I can see. I'm going to show you a couple of things in a second. So we'll do that. And actually I've got two of these stamped. I'm going to show you two different ways and then you can choose which way you feel works best. Because for here, you are having to try and look and see where on earth your stamped lines are, aren't you? So we've primed that and then we're going to take our colours and I'm going to use the fuchsia. Here we are, fuchsia. And I'm going to use tulip. And magenta. And I might, for giggles, use a bit of purple. Okay, so first things first, we're going to now take our, because I've primed this area, pick our colour up off the mat and then drop it in where you want it to go. And the colour will move in the water of the primed area. If you remember that from the florals that we did. So you don't actually do any colouring at all. The pre-primed cardstock does that for you. So the colour I'm putting down there first is fuchsia. And honestly, it doesn't really matter which order you do it in because this technique is very loose and it will look different every single time you do it. So never expect to be able to recreate the same look and feel. It will always feel a little bit different. So I've gone in with fuchsia first. Now I'm going to go in with my tulip, which is my true pink. I've got a top tip for you guys, because Taylor has just cleaned my palettes with, can you pass me that, Taylor? It's just out of it, thank you. With And we've all got a proliferation of this in the house, bearing in mind the last 3 years we've just had. Hand gel. Oh, so if you've got that alcohol hand gel, it's going to clean the alcohol markers off your paint, off your palettes. How genius is that? Well, thank you, Taylor. And this is a 60% alcohol hand gel, and it's cleaned the palette perfectly. Crystal clear, look at that. So get your hand gels out. That'll clean your palette, and that's a lot safer than isopropyl or whatever it's called. Right, so once you've dropped that in, get your next colour and drop that in, and it's going to mix new colours for you as it goes along. So you can see just popping that in into the body area. And then if I want some more darker shade, I can pick up my, this was magenta, and I can drop that in. You can pick up a little bit more water if you want to, and it will all move. And you just keep dropping that in, wet on wet, and it will pick up the white areas for you. The white areas will resist, and you can start to put your new colours in. So if I put a little bit more water up here, you'll see what I mean. So for this feather to be a little bit darker under here, see, I can drop that in and it lays it up on that feather only. The white embossed lines resist the colour, and you start to build up your image where it won't. See how the white embossed line resists, and that starts to create the feather for you. And all you're going to do is drop in your colours where you think you should have them. And with this, please do not give yourself any grief over where it's going to be light and where it's going to be dark. You can go back when it's dry and add some more of that in. Initially, you just want a good amount of colour down in the areas to see where the resist is, to see where the white emboss is, and that's why we painted it all with water first. So you can see I can still go and do that. Sometimes it's a good idea just to do it with a bit of the light colour. There's a cheat for you. So you can see that because you can see where they all are now in the light colour. And then what you can do is go and take your dark colour and drop that in places and just let it move. Once you've got that in, to move it around a little bit more, clean your brush, and then you can just move the colour. But you can see, because we did the pale pink everywhere, where the white lines are, and now where you want to put your colour. And I think that is my top cheat. So the first way we did it, it's kind of potluck. You don't know where the wings are with the white emboss, and you're just trying to put the colour where you want. If you paint a light colour all over it, you can then go in and be more specific about where you want light and where you want dark. I think it makes it so much easier doing it that way. You do whatever works for you, but that would be my top tip. Paint a light colour all over first, and then makes this bit easier filling in the colour. Absolutely. Liam's just saying, same with alcohol. You would normally do the light colour first. So this just kind of gives you an idea of where your map's going to go. Then you can smooth that out and get all of your colours in place. And then it's just up to you, wherever you want it to be. It's your flamingo. You can decide where the dark colour goes, where the light colour goes. Keep cleaning your brush. See, what you can't see is me dipping. I'm constantly going back into my water pot, cleaning my brush. You can see all of the pink I've got on there. So I'm constantly in the water pot and constantly on my towel, which means I keep a clean brush. And when I've got a clean brush, that allows me to manipulate colours around and not just have a solid colour everywhere, because I'm cleaning as I go. So you see I've got that little bit of dark there. If I want a little bit of dark here, I can keep it on the brush, maybe here. Now that I want to blend that out, clean the brush, take it off, wipe it on there, do the blend. So you always blend with a clean brush. You can see I want a little bit of dark under here where the feathers overlap. So I can put that there. See, that really made that feather look like it overlaps now. Clean the brush, dry it, drag the colour out. And you're going to do that all over your flamingo till you get to that. Again, two options, look, two different colour options. Used only the lighter colours on this one. I've gone in with a darker purple on this because I felt like it. I quite like that. So the choice is entirely yours. To do that background around the outside, it's exactly the same as you did for your lovebirds earlier. Same technique. Dry it. Got a lovely comment coming in from Amy, apparently. See what, Amy, it amazes me that just your explanation and teaching has allowed me to learn so much and be able to do this. Thank you. Amy, my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me know. Honestly, I can't tell you all enough how much your comments mean, and I just love the fact that I'm giving you the confidence and the skills to be able to go forward and use all of the colouring mediums you've been collecting for years and be really proud of what you're achieving, and you should be. See all of the results in the group, and I just think you're all doing an amazing job. Okay, so for this, we're going to do exactly as we did for the lovebirds. I'll not do it all. But you see, I dried Placido. Was it Placido? Yeah, Placido. I dried Placido, and then I'm adding water around him where I want the background to go, which is just tracing around him there. And then I would pick up my aquamarine, drop it in. And it's not going to contaminate the blue, the pink. You're not going to get purple with the two colours. I think you could, Taylor. Taylor's just saying she thinks you could frame this and hang it on the wall. Do you know, with some of these things, you absolutely could be creating home decor because they are your unique pieces of art at the end of the day. And I think you should be proud of them. I think you could absolutely do that. So see how I'm just dragging that out. And because I dried the flamingo first and then traced around his perimeter with water, I'm able to just have that background loosely come out. And then if I want to make it intense in some areas, I can take that azure blue and drop it in closer to the bird's body. Because you've got that white line and the line that I traced around, you're not going to contaminate, and then you can just move it, and when you're happy with it, dry it, and then when it's all finished, it will be like that. Okay, now we also have have I got a piece of non-flamingoed? They're all flamingoed. I'm just going to get a piece of, I'm going to do it on here. That will remind you how to do it. I'm just going to get my rocker block. I'm just going to have a look and see where my rocker blocks are. Oh, this will do. I've got a stamping platform. This will do nicely. And then I can show you what I'm going to do with the next thing, just to create the background. This technique was included in the first class, but I thought we'd just do a little reminder of it. Why not? Because I think that's a good thing to do. Before I do that, I just want to talk to you about another way of doing the flamingo. I said I was going to show you two ways. Sometimes, this is embossed in white as well. Sometimes what I like to do is, with the water, just go around the edge of the embossed image and do the blue that we've just done before you do the pink. And then you can see exactly where you're going. So exactly as I did for the background on the blue, do that now, and then add that colour in. And what that will do is reveal where the image is that you need to colour. It'll reveal the perimeter because it'll only flood in that area for you. So then you can see where you're going to go with the colour. So that's the other way I do it sometimes, depending on the complexity of the image. You can see all I'm doing is pushing loosely to where the white embossing powder is, and the water is finding its way, creating its own reservoir. So you don't have to be precise with it or get it perfect. What that does do is just give you a little idea of where you're going to reveal where that white heat emboss image is, and then you would go in and do the pink bits and blue bits later. Does that make sense? Because you can see that now more than you could before, where the white image is. So that's the other way I do that sometimes. So that's enough on that topic. Let's get the stamp, the flamingo stamp. Oh, there's one in my binder apparently. Liam is so organised for me. He has everything ready for me before we come live on air. I'm ever so grateful. Feathers and Fur, here it is. Oh, he's so right, it is, it's in my binder. Here it is. So now we're going to get the stamping platform. Remember how to do a background. I've got my spritzer there with water in. I hope, Leanne. You can take your markers, and I'm going to use magenta and stroke that on there in the majority, and then I'm going to use a little bit of purple just for quickness. You could mix up all of the colours that you've used, but for speed, just so I can remind you of what the technique was. So you see, I'm using the brush at a 45-degree angle to the stamp, and I'm colouring the ink all over. Excuse me, and then just in a couple of little areas, I'm adding in a bit of contrast of the purple. Not everywhere, just in a couple of places. There we go. And then what you do is Ha. This is watercolour card. So Ha is, and then stamp it down. Taylor says, is that the official name for the technique? I have no idea, but it is now, it's mine. So we've got an impression of the flamingo there. I didn't get enough from his head. You get the idea. And then what you do is get your spritzer. What would have helped, actually, is to have our stamping mat underneath there. Have some foam or something soft. I'm just going to grab it here and show you what I mean. Rather than stamping directly onto your glass mat, having something squidgy underneath really does help. And then, yeah, mouse mat, soft mouse mat, that works. Then with your spritzer, get the water in the right direction, Leanne, spritz, and it will start to move. And then just leave it to do its thing. Okay, leave it to do its thing, and then it becomes very painterly. Now, the more water you put on, the more it's going to move. If you like how it looks, get your heat gun on there and dry it. You can use your brush to manipulate it and move it around if you want to. Entirely up to you. You would do several of those pieces on a piece of watercolour card, and that's going to create the background that you need for your watercoloured piece. So you can see how quick and easy that is to do. And you don't have to worry about it being a full image. Actually, it being missing in places and that really quite abstract look creates a much nicer background, I think. But I'll leave that choice up to you. So that's just a little reminder of how we did the background as well. Okay, so I'm going to move on from that because I would like to show you how to do, at the very least, how to alcohol colour. I'm affectionately referring to him as Aslan. Of course, we're not affiliated with that movie at all, and he's not that lion from that programme. But all lions are Aslan to me. I read that book so many times as a young girl. I can't even tell you. And I've got my original up in the loft, all wrapped up and safe, ready for my granddaughter. And as soon as she's ready to focus, to listen for that long to an intense story, I am absolutely going to read it out loud to her. At the minute, she gets a bit distracted very quickly, should we say. She's not into listening to Grandma read for more than 5 minutes. Julia Donaldson is about her attention span at the minute. Okay, right, let's move those out of the way. And let's start with the lion, and we'll do them in alcohol. So the techniques that you learned in the first class and in the portrait class are the techniques you need to colour the lion, because he's essentially hair and a face, which was in the portrait, and he's just an animal, but the same principles apply for everything you learned in the portrait class and everything you learned in the first class when it comes to skin and hair. So take those things from those two classes, apply them to the lion, you'll get a beautiful lion. And I think that's the great thing about this Academy of Colour journey. You'll realise as I go along the classes that we're referring back to the first techniques you learned in the first class so many times. Once you've learned the technique, you just apply that technique to the different images and you get beautiful results every time. So we're going to do the lion. I'm going to get another piece of scrap card to lie on, to rest on even. Here we go. And then the colours we're going to need are, this is going to be fun because I've got them all over the place. Here we go. GB1 and GB3. Portraits. Thank you. GB1 and GB3. And GB5 and GB8. Feathers and Fur, Golden Brown and Cinnamon. TN7. Oh, Feathers and Fur Leather. TN7. Oh. Right. I've lost it. Oh, I've lost a pen. I'm going to use TN6 from another box so I don't bore you while I search for it. It might have rolled on the floor. And then I've got GY3 and EB4. GY3, there's EB4 and GY3. Do you know what? Who was the lady with the rings on her pens earlier? Was that Jan? Jan, you're a genius, Jan, and we're going to do that to my pens for the next time. Flora and Fauna, here it is, GY. Okay, so we've got all of the markers out in the lion colours. I have replaced TN7, which I can't find, for TN6, and that'll be fine. It's only one space. And actually that's probably a good thing to talk about as well. If you haven't exactly got that colour, going one up or down isn't going to make a massive difference. So I couldn't find my TN7, I'm using TN6 instead. It'll work just as well. So once you've got all of your colours out, we're going to follow the instructions from the map. Hey, isn't he fabulous? He's so regal, he really is. It also reminds me of the Beauty and the Beast programme from years ago where Ron Perlman was the Beast. Who can remember that show? It was one of my very favourites. I loved it. And I think he looks a bit like Ron Perlman, doesn't he? Okay, better looking. Okay, who is Ron or the lion? The lion, okay, the lion is better looking than Ron Perlman. Let us know what you think in the comments, whether you agree. So we're going to start with our first colour. And the first colour we're starting with is GB1. And we're going to add on flicks of colour. So exactly as you did for hair, start anywhere. So actually what I'm going to do first is a base layer for the face. So I'm going to do a base layer of this colour for his face. And actually the preserved highlight on his face isn't going to be white, it's going to be this base colour. So I'm just going to go around and fill that in. And then that can be drying for coming to the next bit. So the only preserved highlight I've got is going to be his nose and eyes. Is it? TN7's right next to my hand. Liam said, Leanne, TN7 is right there, right next to TN4. Well, thank you, Liam. The search is now over. I don't no longer need you, TN6. Be gone. I've got the right colour here. Thank you. Oh, dear. We've got a request. Can we include a Liam with the kits or make him available for sale? No, he's ours. We're keeping him. But we will get that we'll get some of the tips that we've got and share them with you in the group. So I've just got a base layer of that colour on there, and then we're going to, with our marker, follow the flow of his hair. And well, it's not his hair, is it? It's his mane, but we're going to colour it like hair, and we're going to do flicks. And we're going to follow exactly as we did with the little, remember the little Yorkshire Terrier dog that we did in the first class, those of you who've done it. So we're flicking in that general direction, and I'm taking each section is a separate section. And all I'm doing here is getting the map in place. So I'm not worrying about it being too precise right now. I'm just deciding which sections are my separate sections. So which section's going to be coloured as an individual piece. Getting my colour in there. So I'm making my map again, and then I'm going to turn that round and do it in the opposite direction. So this time I'm doing my flicks up. We practiced our flicks in that first class, and we practiced them in the portrait class. So I'm very quickly, with my marker, just getting my flicks in place. So there is my map of where my colours are going to go. From there, we start adding the definition. So the next colour I'm going to take is GB3, which is this one. And I'm going to start now adding a little bit more definition in. So that means a map for his face. So I'm going to have map for his face down here. It's going to be darker, and it's going to be darker across his nose, but lighter just above his nose there because the light will be hitting it. Around these, I don't know what they're called. I'm going to call them jowly cheeks. Muzzle, thank you. That's going to go around there. Thank you, Liam. Okay, and we've got preserved highlight, and then I've got little flicks here, and then turn him round, little flicks here. preserved highlight in the centre, and then I'm going to form the same with some cheeks. So it's going to come darker down the side of his nose and around there, and then leave that little area in the centre lighter. And you can kind of see that with the lines on the stamp where that should be. Around his hairline's going to be darker. It's not his hairline, it's his mane, but you get me drift. I'm humanising him. And that is my map in place for his face of where my light and shade will be. And then I'm going to do the same on the mane. So now I'll just go and choose every section that I'm doing separately, pop my little flicks in and start to build that up. And do the same from the other side. Flick, flick, flick. And the same all around. Now I'm just going to do one half of his face because it would take longer than we've got to be able to do the whole lion. So if I'm going to concentrate on this side, and you'll see how it comes together. And then on his mane here, I'm going to do flicks up. So always flicks when you're doing hair or a mane. So that's your nib is leaving the paper as you do the flicks all the way. And I'm just building up a little bit more. Oh, great, on the close you can see my flicks, that's great. And I'm just building up some more of that definition as we go along in each of those sections. And you can see what I'm doing is preserving a highlight in the centre of each of those sections. So we've got the movement. Taylor says, everybody's in a colouring coma. You're watching because you've gone quiet. So do let us know how you're finding it in the comments. I do love to hear from you. Put a little bit of darker in there. Okay, so that's the first layer on that side. And then GB1 is going to just smooth out any of those blends if you need to. All right. Now, with the face, I've got my palette back in. With my face, do I want to do the face now, or do I want to finish doing his hair? I think I'm going to continue doing his hair. His mane first. So the next colours I'm going to use for his mane are GY3 and GB3. GB3, GY3, GB3, where's G? Oh gosh, Leanne, get you. Here it is here, GB3, cool. So we'll put GY3 down because that's the darker colour on my palette. And I'm going to use my GB3 to pick that up and just add some more flicks in. Now when you're doing the flicks this time, if you keep your pen, it's a tip for you, if you keep your pen upright, so I'll just show you on this piece of card, if I'm flicking like this at a 45-degree angle, you can see I've got big broad strokes. If I hold my pen vertical, I've got lighter, smaller, detailed strokes. So hold your pen upright when you're doing this and you'll get more movement in the mane. Turn that round, so we're just extending it. And I'm just going to do a couple of pieces because you would do the same all over the lion. Flick that in. So see how that already starts to add more definition. There we go. And do the same the other way. And for every, I'm just going to show you in a few places, you can see how that's building up. For every one of these sections, you would do the exact same thing so that the whole lion builds up in the same way. I'm then going to take a darker colour, so I'm going to use my GB8. Have I got a GB8? Yes, there it is. So I've got my GB8 and my GB5, which might be on the other side, yep. And I'm going to start doing the same again. So I'm going to pick GB8 up on GB5 and then verticals, flicks. You can get lost in this. It is mesmerising and really quite addictive because you can build up all of that beautiful colour. You can see how that's easily coming together in these sections that I'm doing. And just keep your pen upright and flick it in with a palette blend with the different colours. Taylor says he has some luscious locks, they're gorgeous. So you can see how that's really coming together in those 3 sections there. And then I'm actually going to take a little bit of EB6 and pick up, where am I here, GB8, and I'm going to take a bit of EB6, pick that up, and then I'm going to really intensify this part of his mane with some tiny little flicks in there. Remember what we said about the dark colour really making the light colours pop. I'm going to pop that in there just at the edge because I think that works. And then the EB4 is going to flick in from the other side, which is just a lighter version of the same tone. So it's not as intense as the flicks at the bottom. And then the colour before that was the GY, was it GY? Or was it the other one? It was GB5. Flick that over the top to blend it down into your preserved highlight. Do the same from this side. So you see, building up the layers, taking a little bit of a time, always doing your flicks over the same area, building up your, okay, I've got a comment. Okay, yes, brilliant. What if you want him to be dark like Scar? From The Lion King. Okay, so then you would start darker. So I'll finish doing this bit and then I'll explain that to you. I'll show you. And then I've got my lightest colour and I'm just over my preserved highlight, a couple of little flicks, and you can see we've got all of the texture built up in that area. And you would continue to do that, and then you would build his face up in the same. I'm going to show you how to build the face. That would be continued all over his mane, and in the time we've got, I won't have the time to do, but as you build it all up, you see all of those layers come round his face, and you can see all of the flicks that you just keep building up and layering, building up and layering. For his face now, you would build up that depth and dimension with the darker colours. So for his face, I'm just going to remember the colours I used. Blend under eyes down the side. GB3. Pick up GY3 on GB3. GY3 on GB3. Where's GY? Here it is. GY3, GB3. Maple. Got that there. And we're going to start blending his face. I'm going to do half of his face. So I'm going to come round the darker areas exactly as you did for skin. Mix that new colour. Bring that in. Go across his nose area and around here, preserving your highlight. And then I'm going to take the first colour I used, which was GB1, blend that out. So you get that lovely blend. And there, and then you can start to pick up your darker colours and add in some more, just checking the colour I need, add in some more depth in the side of his face. So I think, and you're all loving the fact that I'm doing half a face, because you're loving the before and after example, which, you know, I can do more of if you like. I'm really just doing it for time so that you can see it happening in front of you so that we're not cutting away too soon. I'm pleased that it's working for you, because sometimes I worry that it's not enough. So if it's working for you, that's great. Okay, so you see I'm just building up those colours as we go, and how his face is getting more and more depth as we go around there. Now what I want to do is just add a little bit more depth under his eye here. So I want to chisel this area from his eye down the side of his nose, because I want more shade in there. Now don't panic at that. Don't panic, Mr. Mannering. Trust the process. Take the next shade down on the upper side of your pen and chisel that around. And you see how that then brings that area of his face into more focus. That side of his nose now feels more intense. And you would do the same down the middle of the nose. So you would bring in some darker colour here. And then with your lighter colour, blend that out. And that really starts to make all of that pop. Now the question from the lady who was like, what if you want to make him darker like Scar? I started with GB1 and GB3. What I would like you to do is to start darker. So you would start with one shade. So instead, leave out the GB1 and go up to the GB3, and then go one number up on all of your pens, and that would make him a much darker. And then you could bring in your really dark colours, and maybe even a little bit of black or very dark brown. I've got the very dark brown or a black marker. Or grey. You know how we did the grey undertone in some of them, and I'll just do it on here to show you. So if I bring in the dark grey and flick this in just at the bottom here, he starts to feel a little bit more like Scar. And then you would go over the top with the brown, so it's not the dark grey, but it feels like brown, and then flick that out. And that's how you would intensify it. So do your grey underlays if you want to as well. Okay, so that shows you how to intensify the colour. You would do that on his face, keep going with his muzzle, etc., exactly as I've shown you in the instructions. Blend those colours out, preserve your highlights so you can see how you build the depth and the chiselling in his face. Once you've done that, if you want to give him some, check the colour, that's the wrong colour. If you want to give him some texture where he would have whiskers, tiny little dots with the tip of your brush marker, you can add him in some whiskers. And then when you've finished all of that and you've taken each little section as it comes, that's what you'll have. He's gorgeous, isn't he? Now, I will not fib. To do him from beginning to end in this session would have taken me at least 1 hour. And when that's coloured in, it's about an hour's worth of colouring to get to that point with the layering. So it is a project, and it is something you want to sit and enjoy the process. This is just showing you how to apply the colour and where to put the techniques. This is what it's going to look like when you've taken your time to do that and follow the instructions that you've been given here and the colours to build it to that point in the step-by-steps. When you've got time, you will end up with that result. I didn't want to waste a whole hour doing that for you. Okay, so move on from him, should we? Oh, by the way, when you frame him up, that's what he will look like. Now, we can either do another alcohol, of another animal, or we could do the watercolour of the lion. What do we think? Okay, we're going to do the watercolour of the lion. That's called Liam's Choice. Okay, I'm just going to get up off my chair and go and grab it. Here it is. Now, I find watercolouring, if you're a little bit intimidated by the alcohol colour version, because it is a bit of a project, you are going to need that time to sit and do it. You might find that doing the watercolour is more for you. Equally as beautiful, just more of a painterly effect. The difference between the two is one looks airbrushed and printed, alcohol, the other one looks more like an actual painting. So it just depends which one you want. If you're intimidated by having to spend an hour colouring an image. I know there was a couple of comments in the group actually, forgetting the lady's name, but she said from memory, I haven't got time to spend an hour colouring an image. Start with watercolour if that's what you want. Alcohol colouring does take time. There's no doubt about it, because you need to be able to layer your colours, you need to do your flicking, you need to go back with several layers, do the light to dark, preserve your highlight. So it's always worth it at the end because it looks incredible when it's finished, but it is a little bit more of a process. So that's for when you've got plenty of time, you want to be very mindful and you want to have a lovely experience with a larger image like the lion. If you haven't got a lot of time and you want maximum impact, minimum effort, and you want something done really quick, watercolouring would be the option, I would say. So let's have a look at our lion here. And the colours I'm going to use are Desert, Topaz, oh dear me, oh, on the end of Sunset. Well, the Flora and Fauna. Liam said, Leanne, is it not in the Flora and Fauna box? No, Liam. Oh, that's Feathers and Fur. Flora and Fauna. No, it's not Liam. Topaz. Yes, it is. It is. I've got it. He knows. Never doubt Liam's sheet. Topaz is there. Chestnut and Fawn. Chestnut and Fawn. And chocolate. Got it. Got it. Thank you. Right, so they're the 4 colours that we're going to use. Piece of kitchen towel. Piece of kitchen towel. Here we go. And then we're going to follow the instruction. So, first things first. I need my palette. Where's my palette gone? Come to me, palette. I have got 2 somewhere that, right, here it is. Excellent. There's my palette. Right, so palette first. And the first thing we're going to do is take Desert. From my palette, here we've got here, with a damp brush. And then we're going to flick that colour in. What I'm not going to do, what we're not going to do, because we want texture in the flicks, is to pre-wet the image. So this is an example of when you would not pre-prime your watercolour card. You want this to be dry. And then you want your brush to be just damp. Pick up your colour, and exactly as you did with your alcohol markers, with your paintbrush, flick that colour in. Pick it up, flick it in. I'm just going to do half again. And so the principle of what we've just done on the alcohol one is exactly the same for the watercolour one. You're just using a different medium and it's quicker with watercolour. So you can flick it in that way, pick each one of those areas, turn it round and flick in the opposite way. Where everybody's in a colouring coma again. You know, I go quiet as well, don't I, when I'm concentrating. I need to remember not to do that. It really is very, very, very relaxing. And then we'll put a little bit in here, and then you can keep topping your palette up with more colour as you need it. Turn your image around. Vary the length of your flicks, and you can extend those with watercolour very easily. I'll do that one little extra bit in the middle. The great thing as well about watercolouring is, again, if you're putting pressure on yourself for it looking perfect, watercolouring does not need to look perfect because it is more of that painterly effect. So it's very forgiving, and you can forgive yourself as well. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to just spread that out a little bit. So you see what I've done is clean my brush, and then with just damp water on my brush, I'm sort of joining those flicks together to get that light wash of colour between where I've done the flicks. So I've still got a preserved highlight, but it's a little bit softer. And then I'm going to take my next colour, which is Topaz. And I'm going to do exactly the same. So pick up Topaz, flick over the top, dry brush. And actually it would have been helpful to dry the base layer. That's a good, I'm going to give you that top tip right now. Dry your base layer before you do that. Because you'll get more definition in your flick because the card isn't wet underneath and the ink isn't wet. There we go. And then turn around and do exactly the same in the opposite direction. So Liam's just said to me the brush is literally becoming the pen, exactly the same. It's the same technique, you're just using a different medium to get that colour in there. And you can fill that in a little bit in the middle if you want to, by doing exactly what we just did before. So you've got that lovely mix between the colours there. So you can see all of the colours of the mane are starting to intermingle into one, which is what you want. And then finally, with Fawn, and actually probably I'm going to say a little bit of the chestnut maybe, you're going to put in your final texture. So now I've got a practically dry brush, so I've cleaned my brush and I've took a lot of water off. Then I'm going to pick up that colour, and this is where I'm going to get my lighter flick that in, turn it around and do it in the opposite direction, and it will build up all of that texture for you. Your face, you're going to do exactly as we did in the portrait class. Go back and have a look at the portrait lessons. Apply that technique exactly as you learned for portraiture to the face of the lion. You'll get a lovely result. Yeah? Oh, it's on screen. So Michelle, Chanenko, have I said that correct, Michelle? How do you know when to use the wet on dry versus the wet on wet technique? Excellent, excellent question, Michelle. So when you want a very soft watercolour feel, let's pick the flamingo. When you want a very soft watercolour feel where the colouring is flat and there is no texture, wet into wet, because the colour all blends for you. When you want definition in your stroke, so texture onto dry card. Hope that helps. And that's when I'm saying I'm using a dry brush as well, because what that's doing is giving me the texture in his fur. So I've just got the colour, and the colours aren't all mixing into each other. Okay, so you would keep going round several layers, dry in between each layer, do your brush strokes exactly as you did with the alcohol marker, and keep doing that, and you get all of that texture as you go along. You see how that's coming together. When you're finished doing that, that's what you will have. And you're going to do his face in exactly the same way as we did our faces in the portrait collection, using the same mapping as I showed you with the alcohol marker to get where the light and shade's going to be on his face. And of course, you've got all of these boards available to you to follow as well. That's what he looks like when he's a finished example. And if you've got a little die cut of a crown, stick it on, because he is absolutely the king of the jungle, the king of the animal kingdom. He deserves it. Right, it's been 2 hours. It feels like half an hour. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for joining me in this 2 hours. I hope you got lots of hints and tips and new techniques with your fabulous feathers and fur box. All of these will get uploaded to the Facebook group and to the website for you. So all of my notes on the colours, my handwritten notes, all of the boards with the step-by-steps, exactly how to achieve it, so you can take your time, practice it many times. And then there's also a tutorial for you with the owl, the fox and the squirrel, which will all get uploaded to Facebook and the website for you. And the techniques for those 3 demonstrations are exactly the same as we've just done for the 3 that I've shown you tonight. I hope it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. I can't wait till the next one. And the next one's soon, I think, actually. I don't think it's very far away because obviously this one was a little bit delayed. So thank you for your patience. I've had a fabulous time. And I will be popping into the Facebook group in the next couple of weeks to see what you've been doing with your feathers and fur set, and I really can't wait to see your progress. Thanks very much, guys, and I'll see you again soon.